Sharing my trial with the Almighty made this heavy load lighter, made me accept the situation easier. And then next is my family, of course. So yun ang nagbibigay sa akin ng hope na kailangan kong gumaling, kailangan kong umuwi.
I think this is the great opportunity for me to thank those people behind. First and foremost, I thank God for giving me the chance to live again. I know He will take care of me and just believe in the power of prayer. With that, I know I can surpass the challenges I have been through. I am sitting in front of you, sharing my experiences. And I just like to take it seriously na parang prayer lang talaga to surpass the challenges na kung anong meron.
Healing and love. Hope, healing and love. Hope, healing and love. Solid. Healing and love.
This Yuletide Greetings is brought to you by Pios Lechon, Cesar Goldsmith, and Neneng Orona and family. Pilar Street, Zamboanga City. Mano Mano, na Greenfields, Santa Maria, Zamboanga City. El Asaw Pescao de Aira, Santa Maria, Zamboanga City.
Zamboanga, di ato mistake.
Solid.
Imidya mo!
On ordinances and resolutions, committee report, I move for the acceptance of the report.
Seconding members, Dalipe, Nuño, Alabar, Piok, De La Cruz, Perez, Omagam, Macrohon, Valesco. Comment, objection, there being none, the report is hereby accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, there are three proposed measures that were referred to the committee, namely proposed ordinance number 2019-41, proposed ordinance number 72, and proposed ordinance number 73. So if I may be allowed to go one by one, Mr. Chairman, for the first proposed ordinance 2019-41, entitled An Ordinance Creating the Persons with Disability Division within the Public Employment Service Office, sponsored by the Honorable Kimer Adan Olaso. Mr. Chairman, during the committee meeting, it was disclosed that we cannot create an office with a different government agency, specifically that it is under the national office. However, Mr. Chairman, to address this particular ordinance and to satisfy the intentions, it was identified that there was a previous proposed ordinance earlier filed by Honorable Jimmy Villaflores, and this was considered with the Honorable Kimer Olaso that this be integrated into that ordinance so that that ordinance will be compliant with Republic Act 10070, which I believe it was already filed, no? Akal ordinance the last time. So that is the first recommendation, that it be refiled, which we already did. So, akal, Mr. Chairman. For the second proposed ordinance number 2020-72, entitled Establishment of Community Action and Resource for Accessible Better Living or CARE-ABLE Program for persons with disabilities, including children with special needs, in the barangays of Zamboanga City and providing funds thereof. Introduced by the Honorable Rogelio Valesco Jr., who is also the author. The intention of this proposed measure, Mr. Chairman, is to establish and to decentralize and make available to the far-flung barangays, to be more specific to each barangay, a help desk to address and to implement the programs already being done by the CSWDO. So benekay para man expand lang gat kita pwede gat man reach lejos el servicio el kosaya kita chene and to improve pa si Nisita Man. Regarding the proposed measure, there were some considerable points of discussion, of which first was the definition of children with special needs. So just to be compliant with the national definition, we corrected the term children with special needs with children with disabilities and special needs. So, Akel uno. Second, Mr. Chairman, the we added the function of the coordinator for this particular purpose. So we included na 3.2 letter H and other functions and responsibilities as may be required for the faithful, effective, and efficient implementation of this program, so that we will not just limit the scope of that particular coordinator. And we have included here a budget appropriation, Mr. Chairman, with an initial amount of 7.8 million pesos for the implementation of this said program. So with those minor amendments, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation is to approve in plenary for second reading, so which we will be doing later. So I move accordingly, Mr. Chairman.
Seconding, members Dalipe, Macrohon, Tilano, Pareja, Umaga, De La Cruz, Perez, Nuño, Pioc, Alavar, Hanapi. Comment, Member Jimenez.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, this is the report as of now. But if you will go to the explanatory note of the proposed ordinance, which should have been more clarified and subject of the report, I know really the good intentions of the sponsors here. In fact, I myself, I'm really supportive of this initiative. But then, an explanatory note should be that clear enough that a reading of an explanatory note would lead the reader really what is the ordinance all about. I do not know who prepared this proposed ordinance, if it came from the DSWD. I know the good Councilor Balesco will explain this. But for purposes of the report, I am of the mind that if we could make the explanatory note, because the approval of the report would lead now to the approval of the proposed ordinance on second reading. If possible, we could make a clearer explanatory note, because that is fundamentally required in any ordinance for that matter, or any enactment of a law.
May I?
I do not know if the legal was present during the conduct. They should have done their part by suggesting that we might as well review and make a clearer explanatory note, so anybody would read it. Especially, we are dealing with persons with disabilities here, children with disabilities, and those with special needs. That there could be an immediate grasp of the intention is clear, pero I have my reservations on the matter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not know what the...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the observations made by the Honorable Member Jimenez. This was, if I'm not mistaken, this was prepared by Honorable Jerky Valesco in coordination with the City Legal Office, the representative, and the City Social Welfare Development Office. Now, as far as fine-tuning or perfecting or improving the proposed measure, the recommendation here is to approve on second reading And during second reading, I think that's where we can have the period of amendments and period of interpellation. But as far as the committee report, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Member Jimenez, limited kita na discussion na committee. So whatever amendments or improvements, which we will highly appreciate later, can be done in the second reading, especially with your concern na explanatory notes. But I think the first paragraph here, if I may be allowed to read, siguro umenta lang kita whereas, no? But the community action and resource for accessible and better living environment is a community-based intervention which will enable persons with disabilities, including children with special needs and those with special needs, to access available resources, programs, and services in the community through the establishment of community help desks. This project will be made part under the supervision of the City Social Welfare and Development Office, Persons with Disability Affairs Unit. So the intention here in the first paragraph is to allow the wide reach of existing programs done by the CSWDO. But on the styling and the improving on the provisions, we can siguro do it later in the period of amendments.
Yeah.
Yes.
May I react,
Yes,
Mr.
proceed.
Chairman? Yeah. Going over the report, Mr. Chairman, the proposed ordinance is reflected in the report itself. The entire ordinance is there. And that's my concern. And if you see even in the explanatory note, there is some repetitions, Mr. Chairman. Especially, I am really of the opinion that the assistance to be extended to this group should be covered clearly. And if you go to the paragraphs mentioned in the ordinance, in the explanatory note, in one paragraph it talks of an assistance and then another assistance. So I will submit whatever.
Okay, I am open for discussion, Mr. Chairman, when we proceed to the I'm open.
Yes,
we can work together to improve this particular measure.
My concern is that this is a very laudable proposed legislation. We are encouraging here a very special group, in particular recognition on their part. The things that could be expected of them in the present society, and conversely, what that society could also extend to them in the forms of programs, assistance by any government agency or a local government unit. That's really my concern, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Chair,
Anyway, I
just to,
submit.
yeah. Mr. Chairman, just to add, the proposed measure is the establishment of that help desk or community help desk in each barangay, and also defining the functions of the coordinator. As to the projects, programs, and activities which are already existing, I think it is already lodged within the office. And to give it more flexibility on the identification of programs, particularly for the persons with disabilities and children with disabilities with special needs, for the CSWDO to just implement it, because again, the proposed measure is just the establishment for that extension of whatever services the office already has. So siguro wording silang, we will really appreciate the contribution of each member, as far as perfecting this, I would say, lifting of the marginalized sector and taking out that stigma that dehado sila. So Kumutabla ganin, no? Those who have less in life should have more in laws. So, esta la intention de akal, Mr. Chairman, which we will appreciate later to improve this. So with that again, Mr. Chairman, subject later for the further amendments on the ordinance, the recommendation of the committee report is to approve this on second reading, which again later will have further discussion. I move accordingly.
Any other comment? Objection? There being none, the same is hereby approved.
Next, Mr. Chairman, just to highlight our special attention and care given to this particular sector, another proposed ordinance number 202-73 entitled Para Games Recreational Wellness Program for persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs of Zamboanga City, and providing funds thereof. So this one, Mr. Chairman, is just institutionalizing a platform or mechanism wherein we can get this particular sector to be actively involved in sports to promote a healthy lifestyle and a sense of inclusivity. So with that, we just defined what are persons with disabilities and children with disabilities and those with special needs. And then we also enumerated the types of sports that will be implemented or introduced in the city of Zamboanga, such as sitting volleyball or para-game volleyball, goal ball, chess, even track and field games, swimming, table tennis, bowling, and maybe other para games to be identified in the future, Mr. Chairman. So with that, we have also included a initial appropriation of just 380,000, but Mr. Chairman, this will go a long way in just sparking that fire in moving forward to give really attention to this particular sector. And with that, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation again is the approval of this particular measure on second reading, Mr. Chairman. I move accordingly.
Seconding, members Dalipe, Macrohon, Balesco, De La Cruz, Perez, Nuño, Eding, Alabar, Hanapi. Comment? Comment? Objection? There being none, the same is hereby approved. Next item.
Item H.3, Committee on Appropriations per meeting held on November 26, 2020 regarding city's fiscal year 2021 executive budget of the city of Zamboanga. May we recognize Councilor Gingona?
Member Gingona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to move for the acceptance of the report.
Seconding, members Dalipe, Perez, De La Cruz, Macrohon, Balesco, Nuño, Yok, Alabar.
Second.
Vincent Paul Elago.
Second. Vicky Elago. Second. Hanapi.
Hanapi. Comment? Objection? Acceptance pa lang. Acceptance. The report is hereby accepted. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the information of everyone, there are 3 items that were referred to the Committee on Appropriations, jointly with the Committee on Ordinances and Resolutions. These items are the following. First is the budget message, which includes the reversions needed to be approved. Second is the proposed ordinance number 2020-92, entitled an ordinance authorizing the annual budget of the city government of Zamboanga for fiscal year 2021 in the total amount of 4,380,643,720 pesos, covering the various expenditures for the operation of the city government of Zamboanga for fiscal year 2021 and appropriating the necessary funds for the purpose. And the third item is proposed ordinance number 2020-93, entitled an ordinance providing the plantilla of personnel of the city government of Zamboanga for the calendar year January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2021, Mr. Chairman. So these three items were referred to the committee, and I believe the Committee on Appropriations have conducted several committees to tackle these issues. And before I proceed to the content of the committee report, I understand there are members who would like to comment, or we should do it after the presentation first.
Ang presentahan. Ha? Member Redding, you
Leave
want
it to the body.
Yes, Member Redding.
Gracias, Mr. Chair. What I have on my hands is the committee reports dated November 26, 2020. As I understand, Mr. Chair, prior to November 26, the Joint Committee of Appropriations and Ordinances had conducted a 5-day marathon, very exhaustive committee hearings wherein all the department heads were present. Please recall that all of the members of this council, not only the members of the both committees where this matter was referred to were present, and participated kita buenamente, i-checkal kita mga pedimiento to which ang mga department heads, yan take note, i-include na budget del 2021 and the possible inclusion na na the proposed supplemental budget for 2021. So, aldimi lang question, Mr. Chair, si on the report del Joint Committee on Appropriations and Ordinances for the dates on October 21, 22, 23, 26, and 27, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Member Jimenez.
I was going over, with all due respect, I was going over the report. In the last page, that this is.
But before that, Mr. Chair, to conclude lang, para kumigo, incomplete as the report. Kay prior to November 26, yatin kita 5 committee hearings on the aran mga committee report ni Suyo. Kay very important kaya, incluido alyat, acordayo, el pedimiento del Diaton Federation President que construí un grande edificio para con el mga jóvenes. Incluido alya, aquel otro también mga pedimiento del otro mga konsehal. Uno ya, el bridge na Barangay Vitali, kung may propone si Councilor Mike. Alavar, bien monton ko kita pedimiento, itodo del diaton mga departments, kung ken kita te pidi, favorable LDE la response ka natin. Ablando gane, si hindi pwede include man consider na lump sum del budget for fiscal year 2020, it will be considered and be included in the supplemental budget for 2021. Amos ara very vital. If you remember, Mr. Chair, kung dotaki si el diaton budget officer, yarelata lekal ka natin kosa-kosa kang mga epidimiento ng mga miyembro del konseho, kaya akomoda el department heads na dila kadekol mga opisina. Amo lang kang Mr. Chair, kaya lang yung sabi, si Ondea el reports del kaya conduci el Comitiba del Appropriation y Ordinances na pecha October 21, 22, 23, 26 y 27, Mr. Chair.
Member Ingona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The concern raised by Member Eding is well taken. We request the committee, siya bakit akil mga partial committee reports akil ano. Nonetheless, I think with the lack of time, kay tapura kita, we're doing the best that we can. All of those discussed important key points there were incorporated in the recommendation, which I will be presenting in a few minutes. But as the transcript or the salient points kung sa katiyan discuss the committee report, yan incorporate ya kita todo kina final presentation diaton. But nonetheless, if the Member Jihan would like to get the minutes of the meetings, no? So we kaya ba? Dan draft pa esteno. In fact, Maski nakil gani for the finalization of the report, I'll just share to the body, no? Tapi di sila man dali presta mga service kay man overtime daw. Mga trabahante staying in Kabaluay, Manikaan. So anyway, the point is, Mr. Chairman, taasiya sila ko sa ni tapidi kita, pero the content, the gist of whatever discussed during those previous committee meetings will be presented now, Mr. Chairman.
Member Jimenez, then
In the meantime, we are not discussing recommendations here.
Not yet. I think the point raised by Member Gian is she's looking for the not necessarily the minutes, but todo summary del todo marathon So I think hindi daw ata pa prepared, hindi pa kaya si Kaba. I'll record.
I guess if you recall it right, during one of their sessions, there was a letter submitted to us by the city budget officer which summarized all the requests of the SP members which have been accommodated by the executive. I don't know if the committee will still have time to incorporate the contents of the letters of the city budget officer in the report. Yes, Member Macrohon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Siguro, suggestion lang, Mr. Chair. El Minis kasi bin sobra de largo, no? Si maskin pregunta kita na di atun steno siguro, tase pa sila. So, if pwede lang, Mr. Chair, to follow El Minis na manatouch lang na report and all the mga importante recommendation alya. As of the moment, yan una kita koneste, no? Kay el approval del yaton budget is urgent. Okay? So, si pwede lang, to follow lang el minutes naman attach na, unto na report. And with the presentation naman presentara si Councilor Gingona, most of the recommendations alya, entraw na minutes, are also incorporated in the recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Jimenez.
I was about to reserve this comment relative to the recommendations. But at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, this report was presented to us only this morning, and I noticed in my copy, members De La Cruz, Gingona, Dalipe, Balesco, Nuño, Piok signed the report. I do not know whether in the other copies all signed in the mentioned names. I have a fundamental concern here. This is a report, and if you approve this report and the consequence of an appropriation ordinance to be approved, who has the number, what ordinance shall we submit to Her Honor the Mayor for her to approve or disapprove it? This report? This is not in the concept of an ordinance. If we recommend an ordinance for approval, then the executive budget that was presented here, they have to show the revisions there if that is the line of thinking. But I'm just puzzled. What will you forward now to the executive for her approval or disapproval when I don't see any ordinance, proposed ordinance that tackles this so-called, I would say, changes or revisions included in a proposed ordinance. Where is the proposed ordinance to be tackled on second reading? Yes, but that should be in writing now. You cannot just explain it and it is not in writing. Because we have something to forward. Anyway, that's what I feel in the meantime, Mr. Chairman. I may be off tangent, but that's my immediate concern.
Member 1, Primo Coilago.
Your Honor, it is my position, Your Honor, that it's already late at the day, Your Honor. Let the majority or conscience block or whatever, let them present whatever they want to present. And let's finish our discussion and let's vote on today. Para kabete kwento, because we will not also appear that we are the ones dragging or making an obstacle. So let them present, Your Honor, and whatever deficiencies they have, let them correct it and submit whatever they wish to submit. We will not block them, Your Honor. Of course, we will say that we oppose, or just, but let them do it, Your Honor. And let this budget problem be decided today, Your Honor. Let's finish the process, Your Honor. Nung makita man black kanila, because they have the numbers, they will just outvote us. Let them present, Your Honor.
Member Gingona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Gingona.
Just a brief,
Yes.
some just comments, no? As much as we want to expedite the whole process, there were unforeseen incidents that happened, such as multiple disinfections that were conducted in the Sanggunian. I think how many weeks gat kaya perde kanaton, and daton manpower being limited gayot, no? But we made the most of what we can. As far as the concern raised by Member Jimenez is well taken, I understand that there should be an actual proposed measure on the table. But again, due to the lack of time, we cannot reproduce this thick of a volume, considering na quanto disinfection, etc. But the most that we can do, Mr. Chairman, this is the actual ordinance, and then what we will be presenting are just the few pages which has reference to the changes here, which will be part of the recommendations as amendments to the proposed measure coming from the executive. So with that, Mr. Chairman,
Member Gingona, before you proceed.
Yes.
Did the committees at least prepare a new revised pages of the executive budget that have been affected by the recommendations of the committee? Akailang era? I understand that there was a PowerPoint presentation made and there were references to the particular pages of the budget, proposed budget. Did the committee at least make a new matrix of the affected pages, which will be affected by the recommendations
Yes, Vice.
of the committee? Tiene nuevo page.
As far as the matrix and the references, Vice, we prepared in the presentation, but hindi gatle el actual exact page with the necessary, but tan reflect alya, Vice. And then second, read Lego, si man discussion kita na discussion, manada si changes pa, para once man alya lang kita man finalize, para ikauno lang kita as a final page, that particular affected portion of the budget.
I think what was Member Jimenez was asking, at least akel page apektaw, there
Senate.
should have been a new akel presentation of that particular page affected, just for reference and consideration of the members.
Yes, Vice. Did the committee?
That's why I asked you
morning?
the last time to coordinate
Yes,
with
Vice.
Luella,
Yes, Vice.
because they were asking guidance on how the presentation will be made.
We did, Vice. In fact, I emailed this morning Mas Ariglao, more abla kita mas entende, mas clearer el matrix, no? On the akal yaman print this morning. Omer, please furnish everybody a hard copy. Yan sila kayo, ha? Yan na report. Okay. So,
okay, proceed, Member.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, good morning to everyone. So, upon the request, I will be presenting to you what we have tackled the past committee meetings, particularly the recommendations and the proposed amendments to the executive budget. So, of course, it is now a reprioritized budget. So this is the 2021 reprioritized budget, a budget policy that is genuinely responsive to the needs of the people of Zamboanga. Next. Just to lay down a basis, Mr. Chairman, of the power of the purse, the legislative function of the Sangguniang Panglunsod comes from the Local Government Code of 1991, particularly the implementing rules and regulations. And under Article 99, powers, duties, and functions of the Sangguniang Panglunsod, Paragraph A, it states there, the Sangguniang Panglunsod, as the legislative body of the city, shall enact ordinances, approve resolutions, and appropriate funds for the general welfare of the city and its inhabitants pursuant to Section 6 of the Code or the General Welfare Clause. Second, Mr. Chairman, another basis is that we are mandated to generate and maximize the use of resources and revenues for the development plans, program objectives and priorities, services and activities of the city. Next. However, Mr. Chairman, we also take into consideration the limitation of the powers granted to this legislative body. And under Article 415, Budget Authorization, it states there, Paragraph A.
Sir Romer, may naman audio.
The local sanggunian may not increase the proposed amount in the executive budget, nor include new items except to provide for statutory and contractual obligations, but in no case shall it exceed the total appropriations in the executive budget. So this, Mr. Chairman, we are very mindful in conducting some changes in the proposed measure. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we would like to start with the suggested changes or reprioritization. Before that, Mr. Chairman, I just like to manifest and express that we are all one thing, and our heart is really to serve the people of Zamboanga, and we have that common objective. Nonetheless, we are also in agreement that not all of us have the same ways and ideas to accomplish that particular goal. So here, Mr. Chairman, are some different ways to accomplish that particular goal in really pushing for a better security, health, and education services to the people of Zamboanga, Mr. Chairman. So first is under the barangay unit subsidy. Everybody has a copy of the executive budget. In page 221, there is an allocation of 39,690,000 intended for barangay unit subsidy. If you break this down per barangay, the assistance will be 405,000 pesos per barangay unit. The proposed amendment, Mr. Chairman, is to increase the total amount to 49 million so that each barangay unit will be having 500,000 pesos. The objective of this is to enhance the barangay unit's capability to fight illegal drugs, violence against women and their children, increase assistance on maintenance of dump trucks, and improve the barangay health emergency response team or BHERT's efforts for the COVID-19 activities, which is very, very relevant, Mr. Chairman. Next. Next slide, please. Next, Mr. Chairman, in our support to the health sector, under the Cristino Paragas Memorial Community Hospital, in the executive budget, page 110, there is an allocation of 21,723,798 broken down for personal services in the amount of 17,212,460 and the maintenance and other operating expenses in the amount of 4,511,338. And under the MOE, there is an allocation of 1.2 million for drugs and medicines expenses and 700,000 for medical, dental, and laboratory supplies. The proposed amendment, Mr. Chairman, or changes in this particular page is to increase the amount to 24,723,798 pesos. The personal services will remain because we have a limit of 45% and we understand that. But under the MOE, we look to increase the drugs and medicines expenses to the amount of 3,200,000. And for the medical, dental, and laboratory supplies, we will increase it to 1,700,000. So we are doing this to increase the budget allocation for drugs and medicines expenses, which was decreased from this year to next year from 1.3 million to 1.2 million and the medical dental laboratory supplies from 850,000 supposedly this year. The proposal is 700,000 next year. So these are some changes that we would like to introduce under the new prioritized budget. Next. Again, Mr. Chairman, under the health sector, in the executive budget, page 105, under drugs and medicines expenses, there is an allocation of 238,200,000, and under its special provisions, it has been broken down to the following: 200 million pesos is allocated specifically for the COVID-19 vaccine and influenza shots. There is an allocation of 10 million, and it states there is at the disposition of the mayor's office. 1 million for the maintenance of mentally ill persons. 1.2 million for the Ayala and Sangalit lying-in centers. And what is left there is 26 million pesos. And per the discussion with the City Health Office, this is the total amount which the City Health will be having for drugs and medicines, and also will be distributed to the 98 barangay health centers in Zamboanga City, which serves an estimate of 900,000 residents, Mr. Chairman. So the proposed amendments to this, number one, is to increase the budget for the City Health Office drugs and medicines from 26 million, a remainder, to 72.8 million. So the breakdown of this will be the following: 58,240,000 will be intended for for the different barangay health centers in Zamboanga City. So no longer will it be just 26 million, it will now be raised to 58,240,000. And then 14,560,000 will be intended for the City Health Office supplies of drugs and medicines. So that will bring the total amount, Mr. Chairman, to 275 million pesos. The objective are the following: to increase the supply and drugs and medicines in every barangay health center in the Zamboanga City. Likewise, to empower each barangay health center and decentralize responsibility from the City Mayor's Office for a far more effective and efficient medical action. Likewise, to provide vitamins for all government workers, to include the following: barangay officials, tanods, beans, barangay health workers, daycare workers, and the nutrition scholars, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And the same office, Mr. Chairman, we would like to include under the special provisions the following, which I mentioned earlier, a breakdown, no? Sige, next. So that will form part of the amendments. And next, same, under the executive budget, there is an allocation of 8.4 million. You can see it in page 105, under medical, dental, and laboratory supplies. We wish to increase the amount from 8.4 million to 10 million pesos. This is to improve the medical, dental, laboratory services of the City Health Office and barangay health centers in Zamboanga City. Again, under the same office, City Health Office, in the executive budget, page 106, there is an allocation of 318,210 pesos intended for other maintenance and operating expenses. This one was just done verbally. That's why this was just a proof that COSACET discussed and reflect aki to include a special provision for the conduct of mammogram tests for female government employees and prostate check-up for male government employees. This is to ensure that the government workers are healthy and far from the health risks of breast cancer and prostate cancer. Next, Mr. Chairman, is the Office of the City Disaster Risk and Reduction Management, or the CDRRMO. In the executive budget, page 159, there is an allocation of 15 million pesos intended for the procurement of 5 units of accelerographs and 3 million pesos intended for the procurement of 10 units heart stations. It was made clear during that committee meeting, especially the chairman on the Committee on Disaster, that these items are not urgent and important at this point in time. So the amendment for that particular page is to increase the lump sum budget for the construction of evacuation centers in the different barangays in Zamboanga City by 18 million. So we will take this out, we will delete these particular items and transfer it to the lump sum to the construction of evacuation centers. Why? We wish to increase the number of evacuation centers so that during a crisis, classes in schools used as temporary evacuation centers will no longer be interrupted once niya kita ulit face-to-face. So prepare niya kita. And then nakita ka tempo pa kita konstruyi. So indeed, there is a need to allocate funds for evacuation centers, especially in densely populated communities. And again, just to show that whatever was discussed in the previous committee meetings, we will reflect it here. And I think it was made mention by Ma'am Dindin, our budget officer, that the construction or allocation for the rehabilitation of bridges located at Kawit, San Roque, and Maasin will be withheld with a total amount of 40 million pesos, pending the justification for the implementation. Next. Under the same office, Mr. Chairman, there is an allocation of 30 million pesos. You can find it in page 158, intended for capital outlay, site development of the new DRRM building located at Kabatangan. Again, we deemed it not that urgent, so we decreased the amount from 30 million down to 10 million pesos, so that the excess 20 million will be given to increase the welfare goods expenses by 10 million pesos and the agricultural and marine supplies by 10 million pesos. Again, we have done this within the office of the CDRMO to be mindful of the 30% and 70% allocation. So the objective, Mr. Chairman, the 10 million pesos welfare goods shall be intended for food packs for lockdown areas. And the other 10 million pesos will be intended for agricultural, marine supplies, so that we will be giving additional assistance to the farmers, because sabi kita, el sector del agricultura, ya salagat apektado con este pandemia. So it can be used to buy fertilizers, pesticides, sprayers, and plastic drums, etc., Mr. Chairman. Next. Next, Mr. Chairman, another sector or industry that was heavily hit during this pandemic is our tourism. So under the City Mayor's Office, Tourism Promotion and Development Services, in the executive budget, page 28, there is an allocation of 1,219,000 intended for advertising expenses. If we've been following the news, we've seen DOT, the Department of Tourism, they have launched several videos promoting different places of our country. So following that cue, that lead, we would like also to advertise and bring Zamboanga back to the tourism map. So we increased the amount of 1.2 to 5 million pesos. This is to market tourism products of Zamboanga City in response to the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, Mr. Chairman, under the executive budget, page 54, there is an item there, consultancy services. No, however, Mr. Chairman, this particular item was not funded. So we did not introduce a new item. We just funded an existing item, which we will increase the amount from 0 to 1.5 million pesos. This is to conduct personal audit in the entire city government offices of Zamboanga to address the issues concerning the lack of personnel from different departments. So this is to really see how we can improve each department and each agency in our local government. Next. Under the City Mayor's Office, miscellaneous and other purposes, aids to NGE. Here, Mr. Chairman, I think this will be one of the more significant changes in the budget. In page 227, again, there is an allocation of 62 million intended for the donations, assistance in crisis situation. This particular line item is in the form of cash. Todo ata si talik cash upon our consulting with the agency. So, in the special provisions, we would like to put in particular amendments because later we will increase this amount, which I'll discuss. Donations, assistance in crisis situation are intended for the following, the breakdowns. 200 million pesos from the existing Largo Vida program, drugs and medicines, JOs, and other operating expenses. All of those line items will be converted into cash, where in fact we have still added more, to increase to 200 million. And then 128,635,558 are the excess amounts of the Ayuda La Vida, and then the 50 million amounts of Cuida Vida and Salva Vida respectively have been all converted into cash assistance. So there. And then we decreased the city mayor's office from 48 million, if I'm not mistaken, to 10 million pesos. And we retained the 2 million for CSWDO and the 12 million for utility bill subsidy for 6,000 registered businesses. Another special provision to be included in that particular page, the cash subsidy of 200 million pesos intended for the Largo Vida program shall be given to 40,000 senior citizens. So we will be adjusting the 14,000 target of the CSWDO registered senior citizens to 40,000, and each senior citizen will be given 5,000 pesos each, and the distribution shall be done on or before the month of July. The target beneficiaries shall be identified by the 98 barangay units in coordination with the CSWDO and DSWD. Next, the remaining cash subsidy of 128,635,558 will be included via special provision, and it shall state that this will be intended for the poorest of the poor indigent constituents, which shall be again identified by the 98 barangay units in coordination with the CSWDO and the DSWD. Each beneficiary shall receive the amount of 2,500 pesos each. So the total target beneficiaries will be an estimate of 51,454 individuals. Furthermore, the target beneficiaries should not be recipients of any other prior or existing assistance from the city government of Zamboanga. The objectives of this, Mr. Chairman, is to provide and increase assistance to the vulnerable members of society suffering from the health and economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. This shall be a direct effort to eliminate hunger, health risks, and the poverty in communities. The cash assistance shall be given to allow flexibility and be more sensitive to the unique and different needs of the beneficiaries. Tentende kita, kada kwalan siya otro mga necesidad, so we will give them flexibility. And the cash assistance, in effect, will stimulate and increase economic activity across different business establishments in Zamboanga City. So elsen ke man ase kita kalayat, man bira-bira sa na ekonomiya, so that entrepreneurs and other individuals can keep their jobs, can keep their employees, and keep food on their tables. So next. Again, still under the city mayor's office, miscellaneous and other purposes, aids to NGE. Like I said earlier, one of the heaviest hit industries is the industry of agriculture. In the executive budget, page 227, there is an amount of 600,000 pesos intended for donations for farmers and rural improvement. Our amendment is to increase the 600,000 allocation to the amount of 2 million pesos. And for the fisher folks, the same item, from 350,000 pesos, we have increased this to 1 million pesos. Next. So this is really to help the agriculture sector. Also, Mr. Chairman, for the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, of course, when it comes to crisis, debe always prepared kita. So under the executive budget, there is an existing amount of 350,000 pesos intended for donations to the Girl Scouts of the Philippines, and another 350,000 pesos intended for donations for the Boy Scouts. We have increased both from those respective amounts to the amount of 1,350,000 each. This is to subsidize the membership fees for the scouting programs. Next. Next, Mr. Chairman, under the City Mayor's Office, miscellaneous other purposes, barangay outreach program. In the executive budget, there is an amount of 15 million pesos. You can see it in page 237 under maintenance and other operating expenses. Our proposed amendment is to decrease the amount by 10 million to the amount of 5 million pesos. This is to allow an increase in the total amount of barangay unit subsidy in the 98 barangays. So the barangay outreach program will be really given to all the different barangays para silagat mismo pwede man-respond immediately na needs del barangay. Next. Under the City Mayor's Office, under the Peace and Order Program, in the executive budget, there's an amount of 7 million pesos intended for the SCAA, under other maintenance and operating expenses. So from 7 million, we have increased this to 20 million pesos para ng mga SKA so that their allowances or honorarium will be at least minimum wage rate. Another, in the executive budget, page 248, under the insurance expenses for barangay tanods in the amount of 811,500 pesos, we have increased the total amount to 2,811,500 to expand the coverage to include all tanods and all bins in the 98 barangays as a show of support to the security sector under the SHE program of her Honorable City Mayor. Next. To do so, Mr. Chairman, to allow for the increase in the executive budget under the MOE, fuel, oil, and lubricants expense, we have decreased the amount of 17 million pesos to 15 million pesos. Again, this is to allow for the increase in insurance coverage given to barangay tanods and bins. Under the City Mayor's Office, General Administration, there is an amount of 10 million pesos, 10,070,000 pesos intended for the representation expenses for meetings and conferences. We understand that the new normal has really significantly decreased meeting in places such as conference rooms and naman kita mga digital. So we have decreased this amount by 5 million. So it will be total amount of 5,070,000 pesos. And under the other maintenance and operating expenses, there is an amount of 2,048,619.93. We have decreased it to 48,619.93 so that we can increase the cash subsidy given to the senior citizens. Thanks. Again, the same office, City Mayor, miscellaneous other purposes, others. In the executive budget, there is an amount of 22 million pesos intended for rent expenses. So we have suggested to decrease the total amount to 13 million pesos, which was just to maintain Alcosa allocated for this year. So man-maintain lang. And there's an amount of 20 million pesos under capital outlay intended for modular office partitions. We have decreased it to 10 million pesos. The objective of this is to increase the total amount, again, for cash subsidy for senior citizens and scholarship grants for poor but deserving students. Next. Speaking of scholarship grants, in the executive budget, under the City Mayor's Office, page 231, there's an allocation of 5 million pesos intended for scholarship grants and expenses by virtue of Ordinance 332 under MOE. We have proposed to increase this amount from 5 million pesos to 10 million pesos so that we can increase the number of scholars and to expand the kinds of courses up to 6 years, including med school and dentistry school. And if we've been following the news, Dr. Carla Chotonera went to Manila, and the med school in Wimsu will be opening soon. And as what we submitted earlier, Ordinance 332 will be amended accordingly. Next. Next, under the City Agriculture's Office, General Administration, there is an allocation of 15 million pesos under capital outlay, which intends to procure 3 units of 4-wheel tractor with implements and accessories at 5 million pesos each. So we didn't, I understand the capital outlay no pwede to sa man-increase, no pwede tumete. So what we did, maintain the total amount but increase the total units from 3 units to 5 units at 3 million pesos each so that we can serve more farmers, in Zamboanga City to try to cater to the 6 different districts. Next, again, when it comes to capital outlay, we know our limitations in introducing changes. So that's why po nilang kita recommendations. So I think this one will, not all of those will be reflected in the budget, but some are. So these are the following. In the executive budget, there is a lump sum of 10 million pesos. You can look at it at page 324 under lump sum for construction, rehabilitation, improvement of roads, highways, and bridges. Our recommendation, since there is a 10 million lump sum, is to charge to lump sum construction of Tamyon Bridge located at Vitali and the construction of Manga Bolong Bridge. And then, since limited sale 10 million, to include in the future supplemental budget or any other available lump sum appropriation, the improvement of Tugbungan Bridge and the construction of Kuruan Hanging Bridge. Next. Again, under lump sum on the 20% development fund in the city engineer's office, there is an amount of 10 million for flood control systems. So, Talia drainage system, Patial rehab, and improvement of drainage system. So, in the amount of 10 million, we would like to recommend to charge to lump sum, specifically the construction of drainage system at Barangay Recodo and the construction of drainage system at Lunsuran Sputik. So, those two projects will be charged to the lump sum of 10 million. And for the construction of drainage systems at Barangays Kawit, Sinunok, Maasin, and Tumaga Putik will be included in the next supplemental budget or any other available lump sum appropriation. Next, Mr. Chairman, still under the lump sum or 20% development fund, for shoreline protection, there is no lump sum. So we would like to include maybe in the supplemental budget as part of our recommendation, the construction of shoreline protections at barangays Labuan and Ayala. And under the slopes protection, there is an amount of 10 million. We would like to respectfully charge to that amount the construction of slope protections in barangays La Paz, Talisayan, and Ayala, and to include in other supplemental budget or any other available lump sum appropriation the construction of the Kuruan slope protection. Next, Mr. Chairman, under the Office of the City General Services Officer, if you refer to our annual investment program, page 13, under the Executive Legislative Agenda, there is an item there that states shift to renewable energy use in government facilities, open close parenthesis, streetlights. Unfortunately, in the executive budget, there is no corresponding allocation. So we would like to recommend to include the next supplemental budget or any other available lump sum appropriation, the amount of 20 million pesos for the procurement of 320 units solar-powered streetlights to be consistent with our ELA. Next. Next one. Okay. Still under the City Engineer's Office, under Maintenance Division, in the AIP again, page 62, under Engineering and Infrastructure Maintenance Services, there's an item there, letter E, streets and road signs, movable traffic signboards, barricades, and billboards fabricated and maintained. In the executive budget, we have not allocated a single centavo for this purpose, and our recommendation is to include in a supplemental budget or any other available maintenance and operating expenses appropriation the construction, the improvement of tourism signages for historical parks, natural parks, museums, Santa Cruz Islands, 11 Islands, Merloquet Falls, and other tourist destinations. Now going back to the City Mayor's Office, aids to non-government entities, just to show our support again to the security sector. In the annual investment program, page 71, there is no specific donations for the security support service organizations. So our recommendation, I think it was manifested by Councilor VP Elago, to include donations of 3 vehicles for the Salam, Sagrado, and Sagrado Jesus. So the objective is to provide additional support to security force multipliers and improve the peace and order situation of Zamboanga City. Next. In the executive budget, it was made known even in the committee meetings that there are several VIDA flagship programs introduced by Her Honor, the Executive Office, the Mayor. One of which is under the Office of the City Agriculturist Siembra VIDA program in the amount of 50 million pesos. You can find it under the other maintenance and operating expenses, open close parenthesis, Siembra VIDA program. To be consistent, Mr. Chairman, during the public hearings, we have requested of breakdowns of all the VIDA programs, and we are very glad that the City Agriculturist Office, through Ma'am Menchi, have complied, and she has given us a breakdown of the 50 million pesos, and I have a copy here. It is very detailed and very specific, so with that, we would like to retain the 50 million pesos for the Siembra VIDA program. So, Also, we would like to adopt the recommendation, which we did na committee, to include components for product development, product packaging, and product promotion in the amount of 20 million pesos. Next. Now, for the other VIDA programs under the Office of City Mayor, the Ayuda La Vida, which was parang livelihood activities, you can find it on page 231 under other maintenance and operating expenses of the executive budget in the amount of 65 million pesos. We requested again for the breakdown of this particular program similarly to what the City Agriculturist Office have submitted to us. Unfortunately, no ay kita pwede resibi tabla ng kanatun kay it was spread across different offices. And I'm very glad and thankful and grateful to the members of the August body who have supported the allocation of 20 million to support the micro, small, medium enterprises. And as promised, I have here a copy of mine given to me by the DTI, a breakdown of the 20 million allocation for the micro, small, medium enterprises, which we will be including na special provision. So this includes here the micro-financing services to be given to them. Because our concern, not just to improve existing micro-entrepreneurs, but how to start some of them also. So the objective, the recommendation now will be that the 20 million will be retained and shall be intended to support the micro, small, medium enterprises in coordination with the Department of Trade and Industry Regional 9. And the breakdown of the amount shall be included in the budget, which I have a copy now here, the breakdown, which will be furnishing to everyone. Now, the remaining 45 million pesos shall be converted into cash assistance under the ICE program na donation. Projects, programs, activities to be undertaken for this particular purpose should not duplicate projects already implemented or implementing or to be implemented by the City Agriculturist Office. This is to provide startup capital, financing services, construct shared facilities, conduct technical trainings and seminars to new and existing entrepreneurs to allow micro, small, medium enterprises to flourish in the city of Zamboanga, especially este tiempo de pandemia. Next. Other VIDA programs introduced to us by the executive budget, there is an amount there of 50 million each for Cuida Vida and Salva Vida in the total amount of 100 million pesos. We would like to convert this into cash, and then 2,500 cash assistance will be given to each beneficiary, and we target out of the 100 million 40,000 beneficiaries, but later on si man-add kita umenta pa se. So but for this particular purpose 100 million SL target datun. So the barangay units shall coordinate with the City Social Welfare Development Office and the DSWD to identify the poorest of the poor from the 98 barangays. We will exclude beneficiaries already included in other assistance programs from the city government of Zamboanga. Next. So, to be more specific in the amendment, we will remove the appropriation under CSWD o MOE, the amounts of 50 million for Cuida Vida and the amount of 50 million for Salva Vida. This 100 million, again, shall be transferred to donation under assistance in crisis situation under the City Mayor's Office intended for cash subsidy. Next. The objectives of this reprioritization, Mr. Chairman, is to, again, as I said earlier, to provide cash assistance to the most vulnerable and marginalized sectors of society. Sige, next. So, as I've said earlier na Largo Vida program, in the executive budget, page 238, there is an amount there of 187,676,558 pesos. The breakdown is as follows. Some of the breakdowns, the more significant ones. Under drugs and medicines expenses, 112,545,574. And under the other maintenance and operating expenses or special program, 62,020,984. I believe this is for the JOs who will be implementing this particular program. And if you base it, the target beneficiaries for the Largo Vida are of course our beloved senior citizens. So if you check on page 116 of the executive budget, the output target there or output indicator is 14,000 senior citizens. So all of those amounts will be catered for these 14,000 special individuals. Next. Just to give you a historical background of the Largo Vida program, it started in the year 2019. The total amount was just 76 million. In 2020, it was increased relatively high by almost 30 million, so we have 100 million. And for next year, we look to almost double it. And I think it was member Litlit Macrohon who was asking for the reports, the list of beneficiaries, the mechanism of how it was implemented. Unfortunately, the committee was not furnished a copy, and I think it was difficult for us to justify the significant increase, almost doubling it. Next. So the recommendations for the program to be canceled and total amount shall be converted in cash assistance intended for senior citizens under the AICS program or the Assistance in Crisis program. This is to accord the target beneficiaries, again, flexibility in purchasing their medicines, vitamins, and supplements given the fact that every beneficiary or senior citizen has his or her own medical needs. Also, we would like to expand the number of beneficiaries from 14,000 to 40,000 beneficiaries. And again, this will stimulate the local economy. Kaya onde taman reside akal mga senior citizens, alias la pwede gasta dila pondo rather than just going through a procurement process, Mr. Chairman. Next. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we just like to say that taxpayers' money should be spent wisely, and the poorest of the poor must get the most value out of public spending. And up to the last person, the farthest barangay, na mga adentro sitio, na mga bahay kubo, ay pwede gat resibi asistensya, ay pwede gat experiential assistance del gobyerno de aton. So with that, Mr. Chairman, those are the recommendations or amendments that we would like to introduce, which we will be tackling one by one later if ever we get to second reading. So with that, Mr. Chairman, there are 3 recommendations. Before we discuss each, I just like to state them. The first recommendation is based on the budget message of Her Honor the City Mayor, is the approval of the reversion of the unallotted legislative appropriation, the total amount of 185,770,000 as continuing appropriation for the fiscal year 2021 executive budget. So siguro Mr. Chairman, may I move to approve the reversions of 185,770,000 pesos. I move accordingly.
Seconding.
This is just the reversions lang.
Yes. Members Dalipe, Macrohon, Balesco, Olaso, De La Cruz, Perez, Nuño, Pio, Alabar, yes, clarification, Member Jimenez.
I just like to be clarified, Your Honor, at the stage that we are in. So the report has been presented. What is being now sought is the approval of the different recommendations.
Yes.
One of which is the recommendation for the approval of the reversion. So we are now at that stage, Your Honor.
Yes. For clarification, Member Gingona, the items na reversion, no changes from the one submitted by the executive. It remains as is.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comment?
Na reverse, we didn't touch anything, Vice.
Objection? There being none, the same is hereby approved. Next.
There are 2 other recommendations of those remaining 2 items. If I may first go to the last one before we tackle the more important one, or I mean as important. I move to approve the recommendation to approve on second reading proposed ordinance number 2020-93, entitled an ordinance providing the plantilla of personnel of the city government of Zamboanga for the calendar year January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2021. I move accordingly, Mr. Chairman.
Seconding, Members Dalipe, Omaga, Valesco, Olaso, De La Cruz, Perez, Nuño, Juan Climaco Elago, Pio, Calavar. Comment, Villa Flores. Jointly and severally seconded.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Chairman, last recommendation. As presented, we would like to recommend for the approval on second reading later, which we'll be discussing proposed ordinance number 2020-92 entitled an ordinance authorizing the annual budget of the city government of Zamboanga for fiscal year 2021 in the total amount of 4,380,643,720 pesos, covering the various expenditures for the operation of the city government of Zamboanga for fiscal year 2021 and appropriating the necessary funds for the purpose as amended, which I mentioned one by one in the nantes.
Seconding, members Dalipe, Macrohon, Valesco, Olaso, De La Cruz, Perez, Nuño, Pioc, Alavar. Comment, objection, one.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, for the record, no, there were manifestations made by member Juan Kim Alago and Councilor King Umaga on the report, and they have written a it was manifested. Let that be reflected.
Nominal voting.
Okay. I think they already objected na committee level. So STR kill acceptance lang, di ba? So I think no one will be vice. I think they objected na committee level. So a key for the recommendation lang to discuss later for second reading.
Yes, but the others are also objecting to the,
Okay.
also would like to reflect their vote on the committee recommendations.
All right, Vice.
H.3 yan kita ba ito?
Ha?
Yes.
Ano yan? I.3 yan?
No, 8.3.
Na recommendation?
Recommendation number 2.
Recommendation number...
B, letter B, sorry, letter B.
Committee report pa lang.
On the motion of the Honorable Gingona for recommendation number
Letter B.
letter B. Letter B under the committee report under item H.3. As moved by the Honorable Gingona and seconded by Honorable Members Dalipe, Macrohon, Olaso, Valesco, Pioc, Alavar, Perez, Nuño, and De La Cruz. Honorable Alavar seconded the motion. Honorable Atilano Sr.
I-vote muna, then you may explain later.
Honorable Atilano Sr. voted against. Honorable De La Cruz seconded the motion. Honorable Dalipe seconded the motion. Honorable Edding voted against. Honorable Elago II. Honorable Elago II voted against. Honorable Vincent Paul Elago.
Approved.
Honorable Gingona IV is the movant. Honorable Hanapi.
Against.
Honorable Hanapi voted against. Honorable Jimenez voted against. Honorable Macrohon seconded the motion. Honorable Nuño seconded the motion. Honorable Olaso seconded the motion. Honorable Umaga voted against. Honorable Pareja voted against. Honorable Perez seconded the motion. Honorable Pioc seconded the motion. Honorable Valesco seconded the motion. Honorable Villaflores voted against. Your Honor, in the gallery, Your Honor, during the conduct of the votes, 10 members voted in favor, with Councilor Vincent Paul Elago manifesting his concurrence to this report, Your Honor, as manifested in his signature in the report, Your Honor. And we have 8 members voting against.
Again, what's the vote?
In the gallery, Your Honor, because Councilor VP Elago is not present. Present, Dele?
He's online.
Okay. What is the vote? Yes, Your Honor, since it is manifested by his signature, Your Honor, he is voting in favor. There are 11 members, Your Honor, voting in favor, and 8 against.
The motion is carried. Next item. Member Tilani, you reserve your right to explain your vote.
Your Honor.
Quiera lang niya si klaro porque yo hindi a pabor kay quiero to be consistent with my stand even na mga interviews no and aki that any movements or changes in the budget that was submitted by the executive I will go against. That's the very reason why I am against on the second proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just a request to the committee, considering that you have finalized your report, for purposes of guidance of our staff, they will need at least the minimum, the revised format of the pages that will be affected by the recommendations, because that will be their guide in finalizing the draft, the ordinance. Yes, Member Elago.
Your Honor, considering now that in effect the proposed amended ordinance number 2020-92 has been, the report and recommendation has been approved by the Sangguniang, what is now the pleasure of the City Council? Shall we now proceed with the second hearing, reading, and eventually the third reading?
It's included in our agenda that for unfinished business. So
are we now going to proceed for the second reading?
Yeah, we'll just wait. It's included in unfinished business in our agenda. So we will take it up later.
There's a later, I thought immediately.
No. Yan yung mga otro proposed ordinance for action by the plenary. Then later on, the proposed ordinance on the 2021 budget. Next item, Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item I, unfinished business. I.1, proposed ordinance number 2020-72, entitled Establishment of Community Action and Resource for Accessible Better Living, Care Able, Program for Persons with Disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs in the barangays of Zamboanga City, and providing funds thereof, for second reading. May we recognize Councilor Jerky Valesco.
Member Valesco is recognized.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to present this proposed ordinance that has something to do with our PWDs. Actually, before formulating this this proposed ordinance, this was thoroughly endorsed and studied by our personnel from the City Social Welfare Office. And we also have exerted efforts to also get some guidance from several professionals, from specialists, and also from a representative coming from the Department of Education. During the discussion conducted by the Committee on Ordinances and Resolution, we were guided by a representative coming from the City Legal Office in the person of Attorney Pronda. And if you notice, in the draft that were furnished to each of the member of the Sangguniang Panglunsod, there were some bold letters and some underlined sentences or words, and this was the observation of Attorney Pronda. If you notice on explanatory note, paragraph 1, it highlights the very intention of the proposed ordinance. On paragraph 2, it also presented the manner and who will man the supposed care-able desk in the barangay level. In paragraph 3,
This is about the inclusivity of services. And paragraph 4, it underlines the programs of this proposed ordinance. And paragraph 5, the role of family members of our PWDs as well as children with disabilities or children with special needs. On paragraph 6, it also reminds the people that this also carries an anti-discrimination reminder to everyone. On paragraph 7, it states the basis of the proposed ordinance, and paragraph 8, it highlights the Executive Order 437, and of course, paragraph 9, the Magna Carta highlight. Mr. Chair, this proposed ordinance has this intention to put up a care-able desk for PWDs in the barangays so that government services, government programs can be facilitated by this sector, Mr. Chair, and they will also be made part as beneficiaries of the government's program as well as other programs coming from the civic and private organization, Mr. Chair. So this is the very essence and substance of this proposed ordinance that we, the City Council, would want that our PWD and the children with disabilities be made part as our partners in community building and establishing a direction for the future of Zamboanga City, Mr. Chair. This is the very essence of the proposed ordinance, Mr. Chair. And I would like to move, Mr. Chair, for its approval on second reading, Mr. Chair. Seconding members. Jointly, please, Secretariat, before we approve on second reading, please take note of all those manifesting co-authorship of the proposed ordinance. A comment, Member Jimenez. Before you man jointly.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. I was talking with Member Valesco, who is the primary mover. As I said earlier, I'm supportive of this proposed ordinance. But let me address this concern again. If there is no need in the minds of Member Valesco to make the explanatory note more with more clarity, I would like to, because this is already a motion on second reading. Republic Act, if you go to this second page of the proposed ordinance, Republic Act 7277 should now be as amended by Republic Act 9442 and 10754. The word as amended should be there. And just quote that title of the amendatory RA 9442 and the title of the amendatory law on 10754. So that is how it should read. Republic Act 7277, because we are putting in the legal basis. As amended, it should be read that way. As amended. And then, when you say as amended by Republic Act 9442, you quote already. And then, further amended by Republic Act 10754, and then the title of the law. I have another concern here. We just have to clarify this. In page 1, if you go to paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, please go over the last line. Furthermore, persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs, please follow me, or their qualified family members. Who are these deemed as qualified members? That is not explained in the ordinance.
What line is that? What
Paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, first page.
Hindi ko sa linya.
The last sentence. Furthermore, I hope you'll open my mind here. Persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs, or their qualified family member, can also participate in livelihood and social enhancement activities. My question is, when is a family member deemed qualified? Is it provided in the ordinance? I think the ordinance is silent. Another is on section 3. The last line again, 3.1C.5. A bona fide resident of said barangay or nearby barangay. Which barangay is deemed to be the nearby barangay to where the desk officer is a resident? Okay. If one example, you're in Ayala, what is the nearby barangay that may fall under this situation? Tulungatong? Recodo? So, I don't know, with all due respect to the authors, I think we need some clarifications here, so we will not meet any misinterpretation of this ordinance. So, kumigo, appeal two matters. Who is a qualified family member who is entitled to participate in livelihood and social enhancement activities? Is this family member who is deemed qualified is deemed to be also a PWD? You don't have to mention this anymore if it is directly a PWD or a CWDSN. I'm just opening the minds of my colleagues, and I stay on nearby barangay. We clarified this so I could enter also my co-sponsorship, Mr. Chair.
Member Valesco.
So we'll clarify this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Councilor Jimenez, for the observation. Actually, on the first query of the gentleman from Ayala, when he asked about paragraph number 4 on the programs of this proposed ordinance, particularly on the last sentence, further, persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs or their qualified family member, can also participate in livelihood social enhancement activities. Actually, this was the idea coming from our representatives from the Social Welfare Development Office, with a mind view that there are PWDs as well as children with disabilities who cannot or has problems with mobility. And so therefore, in the seminars for, let's say, livelihood, the qualified family member can also participate along with the PWD or with the children with disability. So this was actually the suggestion made during the committee hearing coming from the CSWD, particularly from Mr. Ulrico Fabian. This is his input, Mr. Chair.
Interject at that point, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If that is so, then we have to provide something in the ordinance itself, at least to
Mr. Chair, may I? I get the
define.
Intention. Yeah, I get the intention. Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, may I?
I think the distinguished chairman, sir.
May I?
Member Gingoda.
Thank you. I understand the concern raised by Member Jimenez on the first point. Who are this qualified member and what is the intention of this inclusion in this particular program or project? I think for purposes of styling, correct me if I'm wrong, no, the proponent, if I misinterpret the intention, but furthermore, if I may read it, furthermore, persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs, or their qualified family member, siguro hindi kita sa word participate, but to assist in their participation. If unable, with special needs, or if unable to do so, a qualified member can also assist in the participation in the livelihood and social enhancement activities.
So it's not participate but assist.
Yeah, ano? So again,
Or the
furthermore,
qualified family member can also assist.
yeah, and Mr. Chairman, no, I'll read it, no? Furthermore, persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs, or if unable to unable to effectively participate with special needs, or if unable to effectively participate, a qualified family member can assist for the effective participation in livelihood and social enhancement activities.
Okay, I subscribe to that, Mr. Chair.
Para mas specific.
Yeah.
Kumbaga, for example, a person who cannot walk can attend that particular activity to be assisted by a family member, an able family member, but not for that family member to really be a beneficiary of that particular activity, but just to assist the target beneficiary. Yeah. So the wordings, yes, including children with disability and those with special needs, or if unable to effectively participate, a qualified member can assist for the effective participation in livelihood and social enhancement activities.
To my mind, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, sir.
Member. To my mind, this member of the family who may be qualified, deemed qualified, qualified family member, I think the qualified member here can only
Assist in the participation.
assist to be
Assist lang.
entitled to assistance, or
No.
because
Assist for
can
the
also participate.
No, that's why, Mr. Chairman, we insert the word. I think the intention here is just to assist in the participation, for the effective participation of the beneficiary. So,
Let's see, my concern, member, with due respect, member
Yes, yes, yes.
Kingona. I start by asking this query. When is that family member deemed qualified? Does that member fall under the same circumstances, afflicted by autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and other conditions and impairment that has lessened the use of their potential in everyday life? To my mind, I think the member of the family who could be entitled to participate are those falling under the same circumstances.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question
Because
to the
why?
proponent.
Because this phrase follows the phrase disabilities and with special needs, children with disabilities and special needs. And when we go to 2.2, that is the definition of children with disabilities and those with special needs under the law.
Yeah,
That is defined already.
Mr. Chairman?
We may just include there. This include members of the family who may be suffering under the same circumstances as herein provided, and may be qualified to also participate in livelihood and social enhancement activities. We'll just expand the definition of 2.2, Member Gingona.
Okay, if that is the...
Yes.
So the intention now is really for these family members to participate No?
Yes, to participate.
Okay. It was my understanding that these family members...
Participate,
Okay.
Not only
that-
assistance.
Yeah,
When
that's why I'm asking
they will be
the
given an
proponent.
assistance.
Yeah.
They are deemed to be participating in the program and activities.
Okay, so we just expand now. Okay, I now
Yes.
understand the intention.
So these two
So hindi na
points,
participate yan.
these include members of the family who falls under the same circumstances as herein defined, who may be deemed qualified to also participate in livelihood and social enhancement activities. So I move for that amendment to be included.
In 2.2.
2.2.
Yes.
So we don't have to move the number.
All right. Okay. So cambia el intention is more inclusively because I had the intention na sila man assist lang but to really participate. Okay. Yeah, and then another concern raised by Member Jimenez on the nearby barangay. Siguro for a better term, Councilor Jerky, a bona fide resident of the said barangay or a geographically adjacent barangay. So, nearby gayon. Beside the barangay. No? For us to define nearby, is that okay with the Member Jimenez? To define the nearby, geographically adjacent barangay?
Yes, I think we will get guidance anyway here from the social welfare office.
Yeah.
I submit. I think that would be all right. Rather than to say nearby.
Yeah.
Because in my example,
Yeah.
Kawit may be a nearby.
Especially ng mga
barangay
bibiyentes
to
na monte.
Ayala.
No, sir ka lang, Balcheda.
Pamatutan, maybe a
Sir ka lang, tali lang. Yeah. See, I understand the concern raised by Member Jimenez. Habla sir ka lang, Tres Monte pagali. So geographically adjacent barangay.
So all concerns raised by Member Jimenez have already been addressed. Other comments? From Member Olaso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing. Well, in that section 2, as per comment of Member Jimenez, family deem, what's that? Family member. Well, perhaps my opinion, if a family member deemed to exist, provided under this law, they shall be, what they call, capable of receiving benefits whatever is prescribed under this law, Mr. Chair. Amo lang kalimiyo, if we can make it directly, if the family deemed to exist and they are capable of to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Member Olaso, my idea is how we could expand that to include a qualified member. So any member that falls within the circumstances as provided under the law or nearest to those circumstances may also qualify for participation in this program. So with that amendment, I enter my appearance as a co-sponsor to the proposed ordinance on second reading, Mr. Chair.
Take note, Secretariat, all those councilors manifesting co-authorship. Any other comment? Member Valesco, proceed.
Yeah, I move again, Mr. Chair, for the approval of this proposed ordinance with the amendments made earlier, Mr. Chair. So I move accordingly.
Jointly and severally seconded. Next item.
I.2, proposed ordinance number 2020-73, entitled Para Games Recreational Wellness Program for persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities and those with special needs of Zamboanga City, and providing funds thereof. May we recognize Councilor Valesco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Actually, in the same respect and the same tribute that we are giving to our PWDs and children with special needs as our partners in community building, Mr. Chair, this is actually an expanded program on sports of the local government. And we have already thoroughly discussed this with the concerned agencies and the one who really guided us in coming up with a more defined para games recreational wellness program for Zamboanga City. I would like to give also credit to Ma'am Cecil Atilano, the city's sports coordinator, for giving us good inputs, Mr. Chair. And as such, Mr. Chair, I'm also being the author of this proposed ordinance. I'm also very thankful on the involvement and active participation of the presiding officer during the discussion of this proposed ordinance. And so, Mr. Chair, I would move for its passage on second reading.
Before we finalize approval on second reading, all those
Favor.
manifesting
Second.
co-authorship, please
Second.
raise your right hand so the Secretariat will take
Second, hanapi.
all. So with all members signifying intention to be co-author, the same is hereby approved jointly and severally. Seconded.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Muchísimas gracias. Dagang salamat, magsukul to all my fellow public servants. We are one, and we really care for our PWDs and our children with special needs. This is a big moment for our PWDs and children with special needs. Thank you so much, City Council of Zamboanga. Gracias.
Thank you. Next item, floor leader.
I.3, Proposed Ordinance Number 2020-92, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing the Annual Budget of the City Government of Zamboanga for fiscal year 2021 in a total amount of 4,380,643,720 pesos, covering the various expenditures for the operation of the City Government of Zamboanga for fiscal year 2021 and appropriating the necessary funds for the purpose. May we recognize Councilor Gingona.
Member Gingona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I make a motion, I'd like to answer the concern raised by the Honorable Presiding Officer as to the per page format, that there should be already a copy. I've conferred with the division that they are requesting from City Hall the template so that they can just input it down rather than they have to do it one by one, no? Kaya blato? Request daw sila.
El Dimio lang, baka lego otro interpretation del otro na aquel committee report. It's better if it will be the committee who will prepare the revised pages of the executive budget para there will be no misinterpretation. It should be the work of the committee and not the city budget office who will do that.
Yeah, but the PD lang el template to assist lang, but it's okay.
No. The template is the form in the executive budget as presented initially.
Yes.
What you need to do
Is amend.
based on the committee report amendments, you revise that particular page that will be affected by the amendments. And that is the work of the committee. Part of the work of the committee. Because if you will be able to give us the revised pages as amended based on the recommendations, that will now guide our staff in finalizing the ordinance.
Yes, Vice. So my apologies, but although it is not a directive but just a request para mas kore daw. I understand este to kere asansina como
No.
page list.
No. The executive budget initially presented to us,
As
you
is.
are making amendments. You proposed amendments. So cambia lang ustedes akal page as based on your recommendation. And then based on that format, sila ekel ACL forma de ordinanza.
Anyway, sige, okay lang. I understand, Vice. Noted. So, kaya?
Hindi, you will have to guide them, Councilor Gingona. You will have to guide them how it will look like.
Yes, we'll do that.
On the per page amendment.
Como as isle, el cosa lang el cambia, amo mag-tweak. Sita the device, yes.
And they will need that ASAP so that they will be able to continue with their work on the ordinance form.
Okay. Okay, Vice.
Yes,
In addition, let's be
overtime.
particular now. What is to be voted is a proposed ordinance. So, the ordinance in its form should be before us. I hope, Member Lingona, we have to do it. Earlier, we just went over the report. But now, what is being called for is a proposed ordinance to be voted on second reading. And where is the ordinance? We have to do it first. So those amendments as approved by the majority should now be reflected as the stand also of the presiding officer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I understand, no, concerns of members. But I don't know if you would really be considerate also of the time kay sinigat kita. Pati hindi man nyo solo-solo nga asi ko sa tuod. Tapi di tanggiyo ayuda. Na otro mga committee dato ng mga staff. So, but I understand the concern. In fact, when we were meeting last night, diba, kami informally, amo siya blakay in any other ordinance sa presental siya ni ordinance. But again, the circumstances are different, and paltagat kita ora for especially ang sinaka kamanada at prepara. But nonetheless, the amendments are there. Like for example, no, like now el ordinansa di Consel Jerky Purbatan Denantes amukel as approved na committee, you know. We amended it here mismo, and amo pa kita as a final draft dakel. Again, like for example, we were discussing provisions of the earlier ordinance without the amended version. Amo pa lang kita tan discuss based ko na original. And then al final, amo kal kita taman adapt. So I beg the indulgence of each of my colleague that we treat it similarly, that this be the working draft, and then whatever we discuss will be amended accordingly during the second reading.
With due respect, Member Gingawana, we cannot do otherwise.
So
We approve a proposed ordinance. The ordinance should be there, presentation-wise. So we'll just wait. No problem. Anyway, you know our vote.
But Mr. Chairman, no,
Mr. Chair,
We cannot also just
I move for 2 minutes recess.
vote now. 11 against 8, I would presume. But where is the proposed ordinance? Because that will be the one that we will forward to the executive. And that will be the ordinance that they will review the staff.
Yeah.
So it has to be there in writing because the rules require an ordinance should be always in writing.
1 minute recess.
Maskin ko sa paman ay masa, hunto-hunto siempre kita celebra nacimiento de Jesucristo. Él le amó, el quien ya salvaga na todo. Vende todo con alegría, olvidaan ay kita con el tristeza. Este el importante na todo celebra kita el Pascua na